I've already had back surgery. At 18, I had a disc replacement.
Glad it worked well. You walk like I wouldn't know it. I don't see it.
Well, that's the nice thing about a disc replacement is it doesn't remove the mobility. And so we explored it, and it was, the traditional option is fusion.
Yes. Our father had that done.
Yeah, it's pretty common now. I mean, it's not super common, but it is common. So yeah, I was like starting in high school. It just got to the point where the back pain was excruciating. And in school, you're just sitting all day.
That's the worst thing for your back.
It's the worst thing for your back. And you can't, now if I'm in a meeting, I can at least get up and walk around because it's the real world. But in class, it's like you can't just get up and walk around a high school class.
Same with me. Estimating 12 hours a day just kills me.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Teaching, I can be up and down.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
And so it's a great relief.
So we got to the point where it's like, all right, we need to go see somebody. And so we start talking to folks, and first step in epidural is some injections to see if we can get the disc to get back to where it needs to be. But the problem was it was so degenerative.
What was it, an L4?
L5. So very bottom.
Yep.
But so degenerative. You could look at it on an MRI, and it was like black compared to the white, healthy discs on the rest of my vertebra. And so the two options, the traditional option is fusion, but the surgeon who I had at the time, really good military flight surgeon, just an world class in his craft. He had started at the time performing these disc replacements and had said, hey, if you go the fusion route, the problem with the fusion route is now you're putting extra strain on the other discs.
Just like a bridge in your teeth.
Yeah. Then you start to wear out your back prematurely, and that's problematic because you're 18 years old and you got a lot of life in theory ahead of you. So he said the good thing about the replacement, full mobility, you can do anything you could do before. It won't be a problem. And it's been completely true. I've had it for, I guess, almost over a decade now, and not a single problem. I mean, still some back pain, but it's manageable. Like, it just is what it is, kind of part of life.
Is there an official start?
No, there's no official start. Yeah, it's just us talking.
Yeah, cool. One thing you said out in the hallway that really interested me was motivating people and management. You have your annual get-together where you train. Tell me something about that. I know nothing about that.
Yeah, it's the Area Dirt World Summit, and this year will be the second year, November 4th through the 6th. And we hosted it for the first time last year. We had about 700, a little over 700 construction executives, leaders show up from the dirt world, from over 300 companies. So it was really, really, really just a phenomenal event. This year will be twice as good. We did it. Does it make us some revenue? Absolutely. It does help the business out. But that's not the point of the event. The point of the event was we saw an opportunity. There's all of these industry events, but they're all for, I would say, more traditional purposes. And there wasn't one event dedicated just to getting leaders together and really looking ahead and talking about and learning about what we can all do to make a big impact on the workforce challenge and what we can all do to just be better leaders. Because I still believe this. We figured this out a few years ago. I believe this to be true today, and I think it'll always be true. I think the root of all of the dirt world's problems is down to leadership and down to the current leadership within the industry. That's it. And so we need to start there. We need to elevate and grow leaders in the dirt world, because the more leaders we can grow, the better off the entire industry will be. And it's true for myself. I think this business is, in a way, limited to my ability to lead. And so the faster I can learn how to lead and grow as a leader, the better the business will do. And that's true for all the leaders at our business. The more we can grow leaders within our organization, the better off our organization will be. So we created an event specifically to grow leaders in the dirt world. And I think people came out of it thinking and saying that's unlike any other event in the industry. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. That's why we did it.
Well, we have a lot in common that way. I'm trying to make leaders out of the people at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
The students, they tend to come there really wanting the technical skills, You're going to get the technical skills here and beyond, but you're going to be managers immediately.
Yeah.
And so understanding how to get along with people and motivate people, work with processes, et cetera. Understanding that we're in a weird time in our economy too. They're all going to be hired.
Yes.
100%. In fact, I've talked to a number of the companies around Columbus. You send an application, you're hired.
Yes.
But there's going to be a washout sometime. Yeah. If you take this really serious, you'd be an A player right off and stay in that slot. Prove yourself, because when times get tough and the layoffs come, you want to be key to the organization.
Yeah, but I tell people, though, I mean, if you end up without a really good job out of a construction program, out of any school in the United States, you're something seriously wrong. Seriously wrong. And I don't really think any, I don't know if any, but most other degree programs cannot claim that they have almost 100%, almost perfect placement in the career that they're training their people for. Construction is, as far as I've seen, the only program across the board with almost 100% placement in construction, which is remarkable. It's so incredible. And that's what drives me nuts about the whole college, no college conversation. Everybody's just trying to make it binary. And oh yeah, let's pit the people that don't have degrees against the people with degrees, or the people with degrees against people that don't. Like let's go against each other. It's like no. Just get into construction. Just get into construction. I don't care how you do it. Go be an operator. You can go create a $1 billion company with no degree. I've seen it happen. I can list a ton of examples right off the top of my head. Or you can go into construction management program, have a great 4 years, learn a lot about yourself while you do it, get a great job coming out of it, and then go whatever path you want to go. And if you go get that degree and then you get out and you start managing, you're like, I just want to be in the field. I just want to run equipment. Then go run equipment. Like, okay, cool. You have a degree. Doesn't matter. Go run equipment. Or go become a superintendent or project manager or an owner. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm going to go, actually, I like the contract side of things. I'm going to go to law school, become a lawyer in construction. Cool. Just go into construction. That's my argument.
Yeah. Oh, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
One thing I tell our guys too is it's good to have that Buckeye brand. I'm a homer on the Ohio State, but you have that Buckeye brand and you're really known worldwide.
Yeah.
They just assume that you are trained and educated properly, and that's pretty powerful. Another thing that's challenging in teaching is the community wants these workers so badly that most of my students already have jobs. And so during class, during lecture, maybe up to 5 people got to get up and answer a phone call about a job crisis. and because they've actually been thrown right into heavy duty things, they're not just paper shufflers. They're actually dealing with high level things because they're needed so badly. So there's a tension there.
I realized that I got when I was working for Kiewit. So it was between my junior and senior year. So it was my last summer in college. And we were blasting. And so I get on the job and we were self-performing the blasting, which is really unique in the industry. Not a lot of contractors self-perform blasting nowadays. And I'm so grateful they were self-performing it, because then, week 1, they put me under their blasting permit and under their blaster. And so then I have a license to handle explosives at 21 years old. And then I'm the one doing all of the documentation on the semi-tractor of ANFO on site. At any one time, it has 10, 20, 30,000 pounds of explosives in it. And then you have the high explosives in the magazine. And I'm the one with the paperwork for the ATF to track. I'm in charge of tens of thousands of pounds of explosives at 21 years old. And that was like one of the moments that I realized, this is a crazy world. This is so much responsibility for a kid. I'm not qualified. They didn't give me a test to make sure that I could handle this. They just here's the responsibility, and either sink or swim. And then the thing is, you get that responsibility. You're like, I better not screw this up. But it is amazing to see just the level of responsibility some of these kids have at 20, 21, 22, 25 years old. I mean, there's some superintendents out there that are some of the best superintendents I've seen in their 20s, like late 20s. It's amazing.
Yeah, they just grab it and embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah. So specifically, I know a little bit about your class, but what is your class that you teach right now?
I teach 3 courses at Ohio State, and one is estimating, construction estimating. It's for civil engineers and for construction managers.
Okay.
Then I teach heavy construction,
Okay.
which is what you spoke at, which is primarily equipment.
Yeah.
Equipment related. I bring in plans. It's probably 50% plan reading, because I've been teaching there 10 years now, and it was so embarrassing when I just started. People from the industry would come up and say, I hired some of your people and they can't read plans.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want that said again. So in my estimating, I'm teaching vertical work, and heavy, it's horizontal. But both, you're going to be inundated with a lot of different plans. So you can understand different perspectives, and when things don't jive, which is going to be always, you need to have an instinct for, now what do we do with this?
Yeah.
And then I teach the capstone course where we all bring it all together.
Okay. Yeah, the course I went to was at Arizona State. I think Arizona State construction program, they've done it has grown so much over the past 5-10 years. It's amazing what they've done. And I was in the construction engineering program. So I was it was primarily, I tell people it's civil engineering because it really is a civil engineering degree with a few construction classes, is how I put it. So you get all the basics of civil engineering. You can go get a professional engineering license, but you get the core construction classes. My qualm with the Arizona construction program at the time, I don't know what it looks like right now, is that it's the Delhi Webb School of Construction. It's financed, heavily. And I think most construction schools are like this, financed heavily by home builders, but also vertical construction contractors, so which then guides the curriculum in that direction. And so I had an estimating course, but it's all about how to build like a house. And, I found it kind of interesting, but it's like, but I at the same time don't care about any of this. And yeah, I'm learning how to read these plans, but these plans are totally different from civil plans, like black and white. Like, sure, they kind of look the same, but they don't work the same at all. So then I remember, like, I'm thinking back to some of these experiences in college for this conversation. Like when I got to Skanska and I was going to go out to this railroad project, they give me the plan set and as a PDF, and I print it off and I put it in a binder, and I'm just looking at it, and it's this stack, 300 sheets of paper. I'm like, wow. And I start at my lunch hour just going one sheet at a time, reading it like a book, page 1, page 2, page 3. And I must have gone through that thing 10 times over to try to understand it, because I'd never seen civil plans like that before. And like, what are these elevations?
It's a different language.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different language, but I really had to learn what the heck was going on with these plans before I got out to the job, or else I was going to be, no one's going to teach me out there. So I better figure it out.
I wrongly anticipated where you were going to go with that. I thought you were going to print 300 sheets and not realize that printing is kind of an art at getting things to the right scale.
That too. Yes.
You might have printed 300 sheets of trash.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Because it might have just been a tiny bit off, but that's worthless.
Yeah.
They have to be exact.
No, we did have a heavy construction equipment class, which was taught by a guy from the industry, which I thought was the most interesting. So there was a lot of good from it, but I was a little ahead of the curve, because going into college, I had already had a job in construction. And then as a freshman, I was working in construction in an office part of the week. And then I get another job in the field the next summer. And I was working my entire 4 years in the construction industry. And so it gave me a false sense of understanding or thinking I knew what I was doing. And I don't think I was as humble as I should have been. From like I'm just better than these kids because I have more real world experience, and I don't really need to listen in class because this is nonsense. I don't need to know how to calculate scraper cycle times in theory because that's not how it's done in the field, and I know better. But I think I would have been better off had I listened a little bit more and had I taken more of it in.
I'd say most of my students don't know where they're going to go or what they're going to do, and they hit the heavy civil. And actually, the heavy civil class I teach, 2/3 of them don't think they belong there, just the opposite of your story.
Yeah.
So now trying to teach them and motivate them, saying, they're going to be involved with every job. Unless you're a remodeler, there's a foundation, there's going to be a basement, there's going to be underground utilities. It is part of your life. So many of my students graduate, and within 6 months, they're calling me, asking me questions about the site work.
Yeah.
And I say, we talked about this in class. I wish you were a little more motivated to listen at that time.
I think the building side of things gets more credit, especially in schools. One, because it's like they make it seem sexier in a way. And then two, I think the GCs, like that's their entry level position in a lot of ways, is these young engineers coming out of school, young construction managers. Whereas in civil, when you own the workforce, you have a lot of other priorities.
Yeah.
You've got to hire operators and laborers and a lot of other people before you're worrying about the engineers. So it's almost like an afterthought. And I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I feel like the GCs are ahead of the curve when it comes to recruiting, especially out of college. And then I think that's why it gets the emphasis it does. And then heavy civil was somewhat the afterthought.
I don't want to lead you astray where we are at Ohio State. We're really morphing right now into determining. My background is heavy civil, and so I'm working on making a track where you can do a commercial track, you can do a residential track, you can do a heavy civil track.
Fantastic.
And this coming semester, this autumn, I teach capstone. I'm a risk taker. I'm going to do something that's a little different. I'm going to invite in the community several heavy civil contractors. You be a mentor for this group of people. You be a mentor for this group. Turner, you come in for the data centers. And Gilbane, you do this. And we're going to have a competition.
Nice.
We're just, here are the rules. Here's where we're aimed. And at the end of the semester, we're going to have the Industry Advisory Council and all the construction community out for a dinner, and you guys are going to present in front of them, and we're going to compete and grade based on what the construction community thinks of you.
What is the competition? Is it how to build a project?
I don't know. I haven't figured that out, but I like getting the industry involvement, and I like people learning to work in teams, which nobody wants to do. We just want to do our own thing. We're so fiercely independent.
Yeah.
We have to get along. We have to be able to work in teams. We have to contribute. We have to hold each other responsible. So some of my favorite things are that aspect. Now we got, we talked about independence a little bit ago. Independence has already talked to me about managing one of the team.
Fantastic.
Now we will hit milestone dates where we have certain things together. And I just don't quite have it in my mind. I got the 50,000 foot view of it, but how we get everybody staged along to bring them to a PowerPoint and a PDF and a oral presentation happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's kind of excited to see where that could grow. And part of that will show us where students' interests are and the community interest, and help us at Ohio State to know where we need to put more emphasis. If it turns out to be home builders, I don't believe it is.
Yeah.
It's probably 40% heavy and 60% and 50% commercial and 10% residential is about where they're going right now.
I see. Yeah. That was the first advice I was given by Rich Pearson when I asked him, construction's a big world, a really big world. You can do anything in construction, and everybody hears construction and they just all loop it into like this one giant enterprise. And it is this giant enterprise, but there's so many different, like home building is so different from building a road. It's almost a different language in a way. Like, okay, cool. You can roll it all up to construction, but it's different, totally different. And so he said, hey, there's two kinds of construction. There's vertical and there's horizontal. Vertical and horizontal. You have to figure out which one you like. And then you can go from there. He says that's the first decision you ought to make is vertical, horizontal. And you can't figure it out until you dip your toes in both waters. And so that's I was unique. I was like, no. I don't need to go work for a building contractor. I want bulldozers. That's all I want. I just want bulldozers. And so I started heavy, horizontal. It was like, this is the path for me. But when anybody asks, hey, what's your advice? Check them both out. Vertical, horizontal. Which do you jive with more? Which gets you more excited? Then go in that direction, I think. Is that, would you agree with that? Like, that's the first fork in the road.
Yeah, there's no one size fits all. If a person doesn't know where they want to go or what they want to do, then I say get as many internships as you can, as widely, take an electrical and HVAC, residential, heavy, try to find out, who you are and what's resonating with you and the feedback by the people you work with. But if fan it in the flames right now. Just grab a hold of a contractor you like, and when you graduate, you won't just be a graduate. You'll already be up the channel there. And one thing related to that too, let's say I got a heavy construction guy that's really in love with heavy construction, but my homework's on wood framing.
Sure.
And they say, I don't need this. I really, from the bottom of my heart, think that I've learned so much just in being a problem solver. It doesn't matter what it is. Look at this and try to figure out what's happening and why is it happening, and how are we going to get this together. And that goes to that can transfer to the heavy too, because every day is problem solving. One thing I really like about heavy construction, I'm a very competitive person, and I just want to maximize profit. And if I'm a drywall contractor, there's only so much upside.
Yeah.
But on a dirt job, good ideas mean, if we can bury topsoil, we don't have to export that topsoil. If we can raise the site or lower the site or any number of things, we might get 100% profit.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost more of like a treasure hunt in a way too, when you're estimating a civil job, because there's so many unknowns and you're only provided with so much information, which is like, I don't think there's ever been a civil job estimated where they had 100% of the information. I don't think it's possible to have 100% of the information. And I don't know if you can say that's true on the building side of things, but the building side, it definitely is a lot more controlled in a way. Like there are less outside variables. There's still a ton of variables. I don't want to water that side down, but there's with an earth moving job, you have the seasonality of it. You have the unknown soil conditions. You have, we didn't tell you there's a gas line right over here that you can't go within 10 feet of, or whatever it is. There's so many different constraints. Every job is a different puzzle. And while estimating was not for me, because I just could not lose 90% of the time. You just put all this work in and then you just lose, and then you lose, and then you lose. I couldn't do it. But every estimator I talk to that's been an estimator for their whole careers, they're still 30 years in, fired up oftentimes about what the heck they're doing, because every project, no matter how long they've been doing it, is just different.
Yeah, I'd be that guy.
Yeah.
Another way I wouldn't lose is most of my career, I've only been teaching the last 10 years. I'm a 66-year-old guy, so I've had 40 years in the construction before I started teaching. But half of my work was private, and relationships are everything.
Yeah.
Relationships. You build a relationship, you build a job with somebody, and now I'm not going to lose, because I know the next time they're going to say, hey, you're not the low bidder, but this company here is, and if you can match their price, you got it.
Sure.
And if anybody ever offered me that, I'm taking that.
Yeah.
That's just, I take it as a sign of respect, and we want a partner, and I'm always your guy, and I'm not going to let you down no matter what. And so that takes some of that sting away. It's not just I got it or I don't. It's I don't have it, but I'm going to get it.
Well, my problem was I was working on DOT work,
so
it's a lot more black and white.
That's specifically black and white.
Yeah.
What I like about DOT work is I've spent most of my years being project manager and estimator at the same time, managing what I estimated. I really love that. And then it's turned into just estimating, because that's where the demand was. It's hard to find good seasoned estimators. It's more of an art than it is a science, I believe. But nice thing about estimating is less confrontational. On the management side, you just got to be grizzly all the time.
Sure.
And when I just started estimating, I became a much nicer person because I wasn't just set up. I tell my students that construction is a full contact sport.
Uh-huh.
It's just we're always going to argue about something, and it's going to be maneuvering, pushing, and you owe it to your organization to stand the ground for their, what they bargained for.
And dealing with contractors for the past 6 years from a business standpoint, but not as a contractor, it's been a funny dynamic to navigate for me because, yeah, it oftentimes is so confrontational. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, hey,
it doesn't have to be.
I'm not trying to screw you. Like I know everybody else is trying to screw you, but I'm not trying to screw you. And then me by saying that, they're like, I really don't trust this guy now because that's what the guy screwing me telling me too.
Yeah, everybody tries to screw me, so I know you're no exception. Come on.
Why is this? What are we doing here? Like, why are we spending this long negotiating over this contract or whatever when it's like we're going to shake each other's hand. I'm going to do my job. You're going to do your job. If I don't do my job well, I'm going to make it right. And then we're going to go on to the next one. And that's, in theory, that's how it should be. But that's the joke. That's why they call them contractors as well, for a reason. They're not called builders. They're called contractors.
That's exactly right. But I've been of the mentality, this is just my personal mentality. I'm not a big marketing guy. Companies have business developing managers. I don't like that. I would prefer the actual person that's going to be the face of your company and perform the work to be the project manager. That's who sells the job, for example. And so once you build that relationship, it's a words don't matter anymore. They know your integrity because they've lived it.
But that, I mean, I feel like you spend a lot of time with your students on this front. But I was just speaking with the head of a construction program out at Chico State. Another phenomenal construction program.
Not as good as ours, but it's
yeah. You know, I'm not here to say which is best, but I would say, you know, best in class program. They were the ones that whooped us in the Reno competition, the estimating competition. And I said, you know, based on what I've seen, and this is probably no secret to you, I think the one skill set, if somebody in college were to say, all right, what's the best, most valuable skill set I can go create for myself that will make me as successful as possible in the construction industry, in the heavy civil industry, wherever you go? It is communication.
Oh, yeah.
It is building relationships. It is
100%.
It is resolving conflict.
Even if it's ODOT or ODOT, because I'm from Ohio.
Yeah.
But if it's DOT work, it's still always about relationships.
Yes.
It's always about, if you come in confrontational on a DOT job, as a contractor, the DOT has more cards to play.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Because they can make your life really difficult.
Yeah. Well, or it's like there's this meme going around the internet, you know, the guy is sleeping on the couch. Like, I won the argument with my wife. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah. You won the argument. Good for you. But you're on the couch. And I feel like a lot of people walk right into that trap is they want to be right. No. You know what? I'm going to be right here. And then they are right. It's like, yeah, you're right. But then are you right at the end of the day? Because now that inspector is going to make, cool, maybe they're not your problem on this job, but they're probably going to inspect one of your jobs down the road. And do you think they're going to give you any favors? No, they're going to go way out of their way to make your life a hell.
I agree with everything you say, including in communication. One thing I think we're weak at Ohio State, and we're working strongly to fix, is in writing skills. Writing skills. If I have an intern work, I've hired maybe 15 of our people myself. If I have an intern working for me on a $15 million job and they're writing a memo and they misspell a word,
mm-hmm.
we have spell check. How much did you really care? How much can I trust you with the bigger issues if on the little issues you're not putting your best effort in? And I think writing is something that in my courses, I am just an instructor, and I love being an instructor. I don't want to be an administrator. I know where my skill lies and my value lies, and I just want to change lives, not systems. But I am influencer, and we as instructors are getting together and deciding where we need to change, and industry's giving us feedback, and that written communication has been their number one feedback to us is they're weak there.
Yeah, but I would say that's fair for just
everybody,
society in general, right? Yeah, I've been talking a lot about this because I started to look at some of the writing in our business, and I started to see and realize, oh no, like our people don't know how to write. And then, I can sit here and complain about it all day, like, wow, the schools should be teaching this or this and that. It's like, no, they didn't learn it in school. They didn't learn it from their parents. They didn't learn it from their past employers. So I could either complain about it or I better teach them how to do it because we're better off if they know how to do it. And now it's on my shoulders, so I better figure this out. But I would say like that's from a construction management program or a construction management perspective, that's probably the most underrated skill is writing and speaking effectively, without a doubt. How did you end up at Ohio State? Because most people that spend 40 years in the construction industry don't end up teaching.
It came about one afternoon. I got a phone call. That's how it started.
Huh.
Hey, we have an opening and somebody's recommended you. That's exactly how it happened. And I knew I would love it. It's odd that I didn't think of that 40 years ago. I got married at 20 years old while I was still in a civil engineering program in studying. And I came from an era and maybe a community and a mindset where I'm going to be the provider and protector. And so I got into engineering, which took me directly into construction, and just worked 60 to 80 hours a week for 40 years and never really put my head up to take a breath or say, is there any other way or scope, et cetera?
No.
And I do regret that severely. But once I got that phone call, I thought, wow, I would love that. And so I did it as an adjunct for a couple of years. And then I did it full time, yet felt loyalty for where I was working. So I did both jobs full time while I trained somebody to take my place. So for 2 years, I slept an average of 4 hours a night because that's all I had. Because I had to do a good job in both places. But my heart was toward the teaching.
And this is while you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Yeah, but I don't regret it. Had I known 40 years ago what I know now, I would have started out in teaching. To me, you mentioned Kiewit. I show my students in the heavy construction a very old DVD that's a very old copy of probably 8mm of Peter Kiewit talking to his troops.
Wow.
I really he's a charismatic guy. And he, in his charismatic way, which I don't have, he says, guys, every company's got money. They got the money to build this, and they got the equipment to build it. They have access to the same equipment that we have. The only difference is the people. Yeah. It's what you do with your people, how you motivate, how you use them. That's where my heart is in building these people up.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. So you were, well, I guess when you get into teaching, what's most surprising to you?
That's a good question. I assume each program is different. I was pleased because I'm a very independent person and I had free reign to teach. I had 40 years of experience. I didn't feel like I had to be tethered to the previous instructor's way or methods or means. So I totally rewrote the way it was taught. I taught them and teach them exactly the way I want them to be if you're going to work for me.
Uh-huh.
When you come out of Ohio State, I'm going to teach you, even though this is estimating and this is heavy construction, this is capstone, you're going to be able to write, you're going to be able to communicate, you're going to be able to present. The technical stuff, that's a given. You got to know that. You're going to pick that up, but I want to make sure you have some of these soft skills too. And I guess my personal biggest surprise, now that I've babbled a little bit to give myself a chance to think about it, was how well received I was. Oh, it was like these guys loved me from the start. And I think it just had to do with this guy's been an experience. We can, this guy's 3 times my age. He's learned something over these years.
Sure.
And he's been in industry all that time. And I think that was probably the biggest surprise is, wow, they became big fans. And so we really have a relationship like I can't imagine giving that up in the future.
So, and you said, and to that point, you said you probably would have just been a teacher had you
Yes.
do it all. But
But I wouldn't have had that experience.
yeah, I think
hope
that's
to
the
get
thing.
'em.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be
That's
nearly
right.
as respected had you been a teacher your
No
whole
doubt.
career. Yeah,
No doubt about that.
yeah,
One thing I've done this year that's been fun for me is I am one that I'm old school. I guess I could say because millennials are thinking a little bit differently. But if you're on time, you're late.
yeah.
Got to be there and you got to show up. So I'm really strict on attendance. So in my 10 years, this is the first semester where I've decided I'm not going to score on attendance. I mean, that's expected. You're expected to be here. I want to be interesting enough and have enough to offer that you want to come.
Mm.
And I'm delighted that that's happened. And that's really made me feel good that they're coming, even though it used to be 20% of your grade, But now I'm just expecting you to come and your grades will reflect if you don't come.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like construction basic number one. You gotta show up on like
if you're not.
And honestly, that's a really easy way to put yourself ahead of others is if you're always on time, without a doubt.
I embarrass students a lot. One is I have fun with that, and two is I'm trying to teach something to them. So if you if it's the first or second class, there's 50 of us in there, and one person comes in 5 minutes late. I'll explain. Well, someday you're going to be sitting around the executive table. There'll be out 8 of you in there, maybe $1,000 an hour worth of people, and you come in 5 minutes late, and you're disrespecting everybody's time by interrupting. And now do we go back and bring you up to speed? Where's your ego that you're more important than everybody else in this room?
Yeah.
I just want to help people understand that to at least my generation, it's the height of disrespect to not be on time.
Yeah. Again, and you might be willy-nilly about it, but other people aren't. And you can just say, well, I'm just, being myself or, this and that. It's like, that's not how the world works, especially construction.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. We don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you teach estimating? How do you break, because it's part science, part art, and it's very complex. There's a lot to it. So how do you break it down into a simple fashion and teach it over a semester?
I use the divisions of work. I start out. The way I estimate in my mind is in the sequence of the way things work. And so we're going to start with the site work. In estimating, we're going to start with underground utilities or I explain, I don't go too far into my estimate class into the logic I might go into in the heavy construction on, do you strip the roof off, get the topsoil off first, or what's the sequence of things? I don't worry about that too much there. We start with the going through the divisions underground and the dirt work, and then start with foundations, concrete, steel, masonry, and we just work our way up the divisions, just one at a time. In the meantime, say on Wednesday we're going to hit concrete, and we're going to hit like a ton of bricks. You got this. We got the strip footers, spread footers, and we got some piers. We're going to work on that. But today, we're going to talk about contracts and documents first. We're going to talk about the specs related to the concrete, and we're going to try to tie things together. So every, say, Monday, I have a lecture that's on a topic not related to the division of work so much. It's just in general, what are lien waivers? Just trying to get you to know as much as you can about the construction industry. Because the civil engineers who are in that class, that's the only construction they're going to learn.
Sure.
In their 4-year degree, they're going to learn it in that one class. So we're going to hit it all A to Z. And I guess I hit it as hard and specific. So then on Thursday, you're going to spend 2 hours in lab. Taking off that, you can use your friends. You can do this as a team. I'm okay with that. In fact, I've noticed there's students that learn best by teaching. When they're sitting with their group of buddies, if they can explain it, they know it.
Yeah.
And so then you turn in your homework, everybody gets an A and they feel really good. But now when test time comes, we find out who actually was just riding the coattails of the teacher of the group. Sure. My last estimating, I'm a risk taker. I do things differently all the time. Of 38 people in my current estimating class, probably 10 got a perfect score. And for everyone that got a perfect score, somebody got a 0. I've never had people get zeros before. 0. How do you explain that? I'm just thinking you absolutely did nothing but copy somebody else's work on your homework.
Yeah.
Because you did perfect work on homework.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing that as being eye-opening to them and to me. Do I change my means and methods, or we'll see where it goes?
But I think that's a good lesson. I had a big problem with a lot of the academic integrity rules in college. One, because it's a completely made up system. In a lot of ways, it was like, the mask came off the bad guy, like in Scooby-Doo, when plagiarism was considered taking your own work, your own written words, and applying it to something else. They started to consider that plagiarism. It's like, so you're saying I can plagiarize myself. Okay, cool. Yeah. So this is a made up system. Like, what do you mean I can plagiarize myself? This is crazy. And I know I appreciate some rules and some guardrails, but I didn't understand why everything had to be my work, because that's not how the world works. It works on collaboration and teamwork and sourcing things from others and really working through it together. And I like that. It's like, yeah, you can do it together. I'm not here to enforce how you do it. We're going to know if you understand it at the end of the day or not. And then if you don't understand it, that's
what you've earned.
That's what you've earned. That's the price to pay. And there's your lesson right there. And if they're smart, oh, wow, I shouldn't do this again. And they actually learn from it. And it teaches them a real life skill that they can then go apply in the real world. I always had such a problem with like everything having to be yours, because I understand learning the fundamentals, but it would also drive me nuts, because it's like, this isn't how the world works. And we're operating in this vacuum right now, which is completely unreasonable, because I'm going to get out into the world and it's like, you guys know the internet exists, right? Like the internet's been a thing for a little bit now. And we're sitting here basically saying the internet doesn't exist. Like all you have is this book. And it's like, I understand, but it also drives me nuts, because it's like, it's 2024. So I wish the estimating class that I had something like that, where we actually got to work together more, because I think that's more valuable.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. It's taking me a while to evolve and understand better. Another advantage to that is this last test I'm talking about happened to be about framing. Well, in a class of 38, there are probably 5 who've been carpenters and a number who've worked for framing. And so they're actually better teachers than I am in the lab space. And my ego set it aside. I'm actually a dirt guy at heart. I can do this because I learn things quickly. And but it's really been beautiful to see how that evolves and leaders emerge. One thing I've been wanting to say is one of the things I say all the time, probably the first time I meet people, is don't be aggressive on the one end of the continuum, but don't be passive. You can't be passive in your learning, in your work. Be assertive, assert yourself, and training those who know what they're doing to assert themselves to teach others. That's very fulfilling to me as well, to watch them blossom and see where they can fit in an organization.
Yeah. How, so you've been teaching for 10 years now. How have things changed over the course of a decade? Because that's I feel like a good enough cross section, where things may have changed from an industry standpoint, from a student standpoint, from an approach standpoint. Have things changed, or is it really pretty similar?
Of course, my only experience is at Ohio State, and I can tell you what my experience has been at Ohio State. When I started teaching there and just did the heavy course, we were, as you guessed, residential heavy. At that time, residential building was everything. So that's really all they learned for the most part, or with great emphasis. And so when I started teaching estimating capstone, I actually am of the opinion that if we're going to aim at anything solely, it would be more commercial or institutional, because you can always take that learning and fall back and do residential.
Sure.
It's hard to go the other way.
Sure.
And you're going to have the heavy, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure you get that. And so when I started teaching them, we just changed lanes more toward commercial and institutional.
Okay.
But that was just one man's.
Have the students themselves changed at all over the past 10 years?
Well, they have, but it's not been in one direction.
Yeah.
2 semesters ago, I thought, why am I doing this?
Huh.
I mean, these guys don't care.
Yeah.
If they don't care, I don't care. I could be making 3 times the money somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah.
And still loving construction or start my own thing. But when that group got through, whammo, we're back to very motivated people for the most part again.
Hmm.
I would do it for, out of 38 people in the class, I would do it for 5 people that worked really hard. But I would say there's more like 15 people that really would love it and want to succeed and care, and worth doing it for that. So I guess the long answer is it's just been like a sine wave. It's not really we're heading in any particular direction that I can see.
Really? It just
seems to be ebbs and flowing with groups of people. I think the virus really crushed us. And that's why I didn't really like that group of people, because they learned their first stuff from me on Zoom. They didn't listen on Zoom, as most people don't. They didn't learn really well. And now we're back in the class, and they will not work with each other. Because they didn't build any bond, and they don't see the picture, and they just want to get done.
I almost don't blame them, though, because I'm so thankful I was done with college and school before all that happened, because I don't know if I would have made it through college had that happened. I genuinely don't think I could have made it through school if I was doing it online. I wouldn't have passed engineering school, frankly, had I not been working with others.
I tried some tools on that were somewhat successful. I told you I was very critical on attendance, so you had to be online and your camera on so I can see you.
Yeah. And
I try to, in every lecture all the time, I try to ask at least 10 or 15 people a direct question, and especially if I think you're daydreaming, or if I see a phone pop up or something, you're going to get on the phone now. Now you and I are going to talk. You know, and I can do that on Zoom as well when somebody's laying on their back in their bed with no shirt on, looking at their iPad, when I can see them drifting. Now you're the center of attention. And most people don't like that.
Yeah.
And so that's a good reason now to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. What separates the kids that do really well from the kids that don't do well? I know you said they care more, but what does that mean?
I don't know if I can say it properly, but they know who they are, and they're on a solid foundation. They come in and they have some maturity level that I'm Johnny Evans. I'm here to learn construction, and I want to go as far as I can in this industry. They just know who they are.
Yeah.
Others came because they heard construction is paying well, and I don't know what I want to do, but they never jump in with both feet. So I'm not as big a one as let's just herd cattle into the program. I would rather herd people in, and maybe I get my chance to motivate and inspire them to now take it seriously. But 25% will not. Yeah. They'll just kind of float through because this wasn't their first love, and it's not their love at all. But now I've invested enough time in the program that I might as well graduate.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So that's part of it.
That's it. That's interesting. When I got to Arizona State, you get there at 18 years old. You're a freshman. It's the first week of school, first month of school, first month of college. And I just remember it being the strangest experience, because you're just looking around at all these kids just losing their minds because they've had structure their entire lives. They've had their parents with rules over them for 18 years. And then now they have nothing. All the chains come undone, and they're just running around like wild animals. They have no idea who they are. They have no idea what the heck's going on. They have no idea how the world works. And I got into that position. So thankful that I didn't have an overbearing structure growing up. because I could, and I wouldn't say I knew who I was at 18, but I knew that wasn't me. I didn't have to go nuts because it's like, I know I don't need to go down that path. I know that path's unproductive, so I'm not going to go over there. And I tell people I think college is so beneficial because I think if you do it right, there's a right way and a wrong way, I think. And not that it's that black and white, but one, I stayed in state and I got scholarships. Had I paid a lot of money for it, I think it would have been a mistake. But I played the scholarship game, and in construction especially, there's so much money available from all these companies. It's so many scholarships. A lot of them don't even get applied for. And so a lot of them, like, if you apply for it, they just send you like a $4,000 check. And they just mail it to you. Like, they don't even ask after the fact, like, so what'd you spend on? They just give you it's crazy how it's like, whoa, this is, once I got the first check from this company, it's like, oh my God, I better start doing this more. So then I would spend whole days in the library just applying for scholarships, because even if in that 8-hour period I got one $5,000 scholarship, I just made $5,000 in one day. Like, this is a no-brainer. This is the best return on time I've ever had in my life. So one, I did the scholarship, but two, I think more importantly, it's a great, it's 4 years to figure out who the heck you are without real life constraints and without real consequences. Like, the real world is harsh. I mean, you get in at 18 years old as a kid. It's a harsh world. It's a really harsh world, and you probably don't know who the heck you are. College is so nice because it gives you this just amazing playground to really learn more about who you are without all of the weight of the world on your shoulders at one time.
You'll find in your classroom, since the classrooms are fairly small, there's somebody like you in there. And as you start aggregating together, you start building each other up and growing in relationship to where I'll just guess 60% of these students will stay in the Columbus community the rest of their lives, and they'll know each other for their whole career.
Sure.
And when I see somebody being lazy, I'll point out, it doesn't matter if I think you're lazy. You got 37 other people in the class consider you to be lazy too. Yeah. So when you get out in the community and people start asking, hey, we're thinking about hiring Bobby. What do you think? Well, he was lazy in college. Maybe he'll do better for you. I don't know.
Does it frustrate you? Because I feel like it would frustrate me because it really just hurts them. Like, I think you go on to the next semester, you get more kids, and then they go on to they're the ones that lose first in that situation.
I spend a certain amount of time frustrated, but then I try to bounce my brain back to the ones that are really resonating with me.
I'm just going to focus on them. Yeah.
Yeah. At least my self-satisfaction. Sure. I really like to take the lady that's sitting in the back row that's not sure she really wants to be in construction and really try to build her up. And I'll put all the emotional energy I can in, as long as there's some response and it looks like we're moving in a positive direction. Or if I can tell, I've been a person that's been depressed several times in my life, seriously. And when I see that on somebody's face, after class, we're going to talk, is there something up? I really get a lot of joy in trying to help people who have problems find solutions. Yet when that turns to despair for me and I'm not getting any feedback or reciprocation, or they don't appear to want help and they want to flounder or need to for a while, then I just take my mindset back to, man, there's these guys that just are loving it here and growing, and I'll just lift them as high as I'm able.
Yeah. Those low periods, how did you overcome those low periods?
Yes, I guess like you would in life. My low periods in my personal life.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because there weren't any low periods regarding teaching. They were tough. There's that old saying, when you're going through hell, don't stop. Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just keep moving, and don't look 10 years ahead, 5 years, maybe just the next minute, the next 5 minutes. We're just gonna keep moving, keep accomplishing, moving. Probably the biggest thing I learned for myself out of all of it is never self-pity. Never self-pity. When I feel sorry for myself, it's like a vortex. Then it grows bigger and bigger. I go down and down. And I think both times I got very depressed had to do with something small growing into something large because of self-pity. And so anytime I see that in my life, boom, we're going to stop that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cut that out.
Yeah. There's nothing good going to come from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I, yesterday, I made a very embarrassing error, or it was a few days ago. It was on this podcast. Talked a lot about just mental health and so on and so forth, because I think everybody's been in those low points.
I think everybody, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has skated through life like, you know what, it's just been 100%.
Nobody I know.
No. I've never met one. So maybe there's somebody out there. I've never met one. And so I've talked a lot about, my struggles, and because I don't do it to get like people to come over and, oh, how you doing? This, and like, I don't want that. That's the irony of what I do is I would just prefer to be under a rock. Like I'm not an extrovert. I don't really like talking to people. Like I'm not naturally good at talking to people. I enjoy it. Like this I love,
Yeah.
but I like social media for me is a tool to connect with people and to hopefully make a difference is how I see it. So I've talked a lot about it. And we did a whole podcast the other day about suicide and mental health and the opioid abuse in the construction industry right now, which I didn't know was as rampant as it is. It is out of control. I mean, just across the United States, but especially in construction, because like going back to the beginning of this conversation, construction, it's hard on your body. And then you start to get a prescription, and then your prescription runs out and you got to go find that somewhere else because you're addicted to it. And then it's laced with something and you're dead next day. And so I put out the phone number as 811. I said 811, which is not the suicide and crisis hotline. That is what you need to call if you need your water line marked or your gas line marked.
It was a handy number.
And maybe if you don't call 811, you're going to have to call 988. But yeah, he gets the email. He's like, oh no. And so the real number is 988. And I made that mistake yesterday, and it's like, oh no, what am I doing here? What an idiot!
It's funny. God creates each of us. We're unique tools. If it doesn't sound condescending to say tools, but unique entities. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to go over and pick up that rock and grab you out from under.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can tell. I can tell.
And because maybe I've felt crushed by that rock before, and it brings me great pleasure to help you get out from under that burden.
Yeah.
And emotionally too. I'm sure both of us have saved lives, recognizing that somebody's headed on that journey towards suicide and trying to jump in, and if they're willing, let's shake you loose from that.
I think college kids get a bad rap sometimes, but college is tough. It's a tough environment.
Oh, it is.
I mean, it's overstimulate. Like you have a school like Ohio State. That's a massive school, and you have tens of thousands of kids in one place.
Yeah. Over 50,000.
Over 50. I mean,
yeah, that's a lot. It's a city.
It's a city. There's a lot going on. Everything is just magnified when it comes to human nature at these college campuses, because a lot of it is just young kids, and they're all together in one place without parents. Like it just goes wild. It's a tough environment sometimes, and I think it weighs on a lot of these kids.
Something I'm not an expert in whatsoever, but I know it's the social media is really crushing people too. We want to live up to. I want to live up to your image. Actually, Aaron, I don't even know you, but I know your image. And I just got to live up to everybody else's image. And when I'm not living up to the images of all these young guys and young girls online, something's wrong with me. And then all of a sudden, one of them lashes out at me, and now I'm crushed. And it's, I guess I'm not a big fan of social media.
But that's one of my fears with it, is creating this image that is untrue. I don't want to. I don't know how well of a job I do at that, but I like, my goal is for someone to meet me and be like, yeah, this aligns with everything I've seen, other than I'm perfectly fine leading people on with my height. People always are like, wow, we thought we were way taller. It's like, well, I've never said I'm way taller, but I'm fine with you believing that, because I am not way taller than anybody. But I try to make it where it's like again, I made that mistake yesterday. I get on social media and I talk about it immediately. I made the dumbest mistake in the world, to try to just say and show it's like, yeah, I'm just like anybody else. I do really dumb stuff. And that's really stupid errors. And I don't want to hide that. I want to show that off, because it's like, don't ever think I am anything but just a guy trying to figure life out, because that is all that's happening here.
I was drawn to you on LinkedIn, even though I talk about the social media in industry. LinkedIn is almost a must if you want to see what's happening and where people are going. My past students, I just want to know where they are and where they're working and when they get a promotion.
Sure.
But me being a dirt guy myself, your videos have really been excellent for me to use in class, like to introduce people who've never seen heavy construction equipment. You can see a great spread working right there. And you're, I don't know what kind of, you've got a neat sense of humor that draws me in as well. But when you spoke to our class, I thought, man, this is the most transparent guy outside of myself, maybe I've ever met.
Sure.
And I'm really drawn to that. So I don't have any worries for you there. You're as transparent as a guy can be.
I try to be, I try to be really open and honest, because I've spent a lot of time working through it all. Like, I just talked to my mom about this last weekend. She was talking, I posted something about addiction the other day, for example, or some of these struggles. And, she's like, I just worry. And it's like, I told her, hey, if I'm talking about it, that's probably the best thing I can be doing, because that means I've processed it enough to speak about it. It's the stuff I'm not talking about that I'd be worried about if I were you. But anything I'm talking openly and honest about, it's hey, this is part of my story. Like, I talk about divorce all the time. It's part of my story. It's part of the reason why I am who I am. My parents got divorced when I was going into my teenage years at a very critical juncture in my life. It had a lot of negatives to it. Now I see it as a lot of positives. It is part of the reason why I am who I am. And I've really spent a lot of time on it. I'm probably going to think about it and process it the rest of my life. Like, I don't think you just, oh, cool, got that done. Now I can, finish with that. But if I can talk openly and honestly about it, it's like I'm to an emotional place where we can have a conversation about it. And I do that to hopefully, model that behavior to others. Like, this is what I went through, and maybe it's relatable to you too.
Your friends, if they're good friends, will be your best therapists. As you vent, and if they are a good friend that can just speak frankly with you, can just identify the problems that you're blind to.
Yeah. Well, or even just a friend that, like, just lets you talk for 30 minutes. So valuable too. Like, even just talking to somebody. You don't need to go to a therapist. Just talk to somebody that'll actually listen, because that in itself is so therapeutic and so beneficial to people.
Here's a part that you might want to edit out, but I'm a fanatical Christian guy and always have been. I use fanatical just because I really embrace it. And knowing that I'm built on the rock of Christ and there is a God who's in control, I know I'm not. If I did not believe in God, and I thought I was just a happenstance on this earth, just a virus, a mistake, something of no use, no importance, no purpose, I don't know how anybody lives that way. I have a strong purpose and embrace that. And that really smooths out a lot of these things.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm in agreement there. I don't think we'll edit that out. We don't do much editing on this podcast. Harrison has a pretty easy job.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, he's got it pretty easy over there. What's What's your best advice for your students? Week one, if you really sat them down.
Sometimes I told you that I hired maybe 15 of my students while I was still working and hiring them at the same time was working and teaching. I only fired one, and that was because he knew everything. What do I do with a guy that knows everything? He comes out of school and he's just unteachable. We all know he doesn't know everything, but he doesn't know that. And just be a sponge, absorb, watch. When I just got into the dirt business, I knew nothing about the dirt business, but I was honest enough to know I didn't. They had me bid this job. I didn't know what I was doing, but the company's got enough money. I know that if I screw it up real bad and lose money, I'm not going to lose my job. I go out on the job the first day and I don't know what I'm doing. So I go up to the guy on the skid steer and say, help. And he says, well, the foreman over there's got these guys doing this and that. But if we did this, and wow, he painted such a beautiful picture there that for 20 years, he sat in that skid steer watching and learning and being very intelligent about how to build a job, yet nobody had ever asked him. It wasn't within 2 years, he was the operations manager of that company. I saw that. This guy is brilliant. I think if we just watch and learn, just absorb, try to figure out everything you see.
I think I always find it funny when somebody on the internet tries to insult me by saying I don't know what I'm talking about, because it's like, you're right. Like, yeah. I've already said that 100 times. So you're just parroting what I was like. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's why I'm here asking the questions I am, because I don't know how this works, and I want to know, and I'm curious. I want to figure it out.
I never want to stop learning. That's really the spice of life.
But I think some of these young people out of construction management, they mistakenly think their job is to manage and to tell people what to do. But I tell them, or at least I advise them, no. Your job's to serve everybody else, because you don't know anything. All you do is serve. If you just serve, you serve the other management there. You make their job easier, their lives easier. If you serve those actually building the work, because all you are is overhead. If I looked through the line items on this bid, can't see your name anywhere. Can't see your day-to-day anywhere, because it's not there, because you're not the one actually building the work. You're not the one actually doing the job. It's a critical role, and stuff wouldn't work without you, but it's not about you. And I learned that my first summer in first year in construction. I show up on this job site with no skills that are of any value to the crew. The crew didn't need me there. They're just fine without me. I think I was just put onto that project because that was the project that they could kind of use somebody on, and I had asked the owner for the job, so the owner was like, "Yeah, just send him out to this job, and maybe he'll help out." And I get out there and I realize, I can't really add value to this project. Like, if I weren't here, this project would be just fine without me. But what can I do if I don't have real skills to help them out, to lay the pipe or cut the pipe or do whatever I need? What can I do? Well, they're in the ditch. They're laying the pipe. They need tools. They need different things throughout the process. And so I can watch, I can observe what they need. And as they're asking me, okay, cool. Yeah, they asked me for a shovel here. Check. And then, okay, we did it again. We repeated it. They again asked me for a shovel here. Okay, cool. But the next day, if I can be handing them the shovel before they have to ask me, that's a win. I'm creating value. I'm making their lives easier. And that became my focus for that year, was all I just need to do is make these guys' lives easier. If I do that, I'm creating value. That's all I need to do. And that's all I did. I don't think I really made a difference on that job, but I did, because I just made everybody's life, or tried to. I just tried to make it a little bit easier. And I think if you do that, I mean, anywhere. If you do that anywhere, I can't imagine you not winning at the end of the day. Like, that's it.
Yeah, that's beautifully stated.
Yeah, that's at least my perspective. But what do I know? I'm glad you're able to come down. I don't think I've ever had a teacher on this podcast. And
I'm honored.
Well, it's just, and it's such a, college is such a hot topic in the construction industry. And I think it's a misunderstood topic in the construction. And I think the college programs, the construction management programs are phenomenal and extraordinarily beneficial. So anybody going to college is like, look at a construction program. If you think if this is interesting to you, check out a construction program, because again, 100% job placement. Like if you don't have a job out of construction management school or out of engineering school, you don't have a pulse. Like, what are you doing? like what? You must have just not applied. It's amazing. And just the salaries out of these programs right now, you get this big salary. You get to potentially go travel the world. You can go work anywhere in the world with that degree, anywhere in the United States, at least for sure, at minimum. You get a company truck, probably. You get a company phone, and you get the computer, and you get, I mean, you're set. You're set.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, yeah, like I said, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, my pleasure. My honor. Appreciate the opportunity, and impressed with you and your openness.